Hello YouTube, this is APC, and today I am making another addition to our retro games series. This particular one was suggested by the Xbox Indie Gamer, and the one he suggested was Frogger. Now I'll go on with the history of Frogger, and after that I'll go into the tutorial. So Frogger was released in 1981 by Konami for the Atari 2600. This was one of the first games, if not the first game, released by Konami, and it's kind of funny because in the same year, 1981, a game called Freeway was released by Activision. So it's kind of funny that how they've evolved from Frogger versus Freeway to their current battles. And so now Konami has only been able to release in Japan so far, but they want to release it to the US. So with the help of Sega and Gremlin Industries, they're able to distribute Frogger to the US, and it's a huge success, seeing as how far and wide you can find it today. And there are a ton of sequels that come out, and if you look at this Wikipedia page, there are like, what, 12? And so I'm going to go over a few of them now. In 1984, so 3 years after release, Frogger 2 was released by ColecoVision. This is again for the Atari 2600, and it's similar to the first game, only now when you fall in the water, it seems like they have some sort of another mini game where you work your way up from the bottom, just as a little add-on there. And in 1991, Sega was inspired by the game that they distributed way back when in 1981. And they released a game called Ribbit, which is sort of similar gameplay. It's easier to navigate, it seems, from what I've seen. And then in 1997, SCE Cambridge Studio released Frogger He's Back. This one was for the PC, PlayStation, and Sega Genesis. And from what I've seen, this one, it's, well, for one thing, it's 3D, which obviously offers a whole new perspective to the game. And it seems to be like an open world where you navigate through the level following the logs and stuff, and you gotta find all the secret things in the levels. And then 3 years after that, Frogger 2 comes out. This one created by Blitz Games, and it's called Frogger 2 Swampy's Revenge. This one is on the PC and the PlayStation, and now it's on the Dreamcast and the Game Boy Color as well. And this one seems to be more of a platformer. Yeah, so it has a huge legacy, as I said earlier, as there's a ton of sequels for the game. And now this year, 2011, is the 30th anniversary of the game. So Konami has released 3 games for the 30th anniversary. The first one being Frogger 3DS, and they're also releasing Frogger Decades for the Apple products. And they're also releasing Frogger Pinball for both the 3DS and the Apple devices. So that's all for my history lesson of Frogger. And now on to the tutorial. First off, we're going to make some sprites. First 3 sprites are log sprites. The difference between them is going to be how long they are. The length is going to be in blocks. So the first one's 5 blocks, the second one's 3 blocks, and the last one's 2 blocks. And each block is 16 pixels. Now we're working on the turtle. The first turtle is going to be 3 blocks long, so 48 pixels, and the second one's going to be 2 blocks, which means 32 pixels. So also make sure you know that the turtles have to have 2 sub-images so that they can switch between where you can stand at and where you can't stand at. We just finished our turtle 3, now we finished turtle 2. Now we're getting on to the cars. The first car is going to be 2 blocks long, so 32 pixels. And that's all I can say. Notice I'm making the cars symmetric, because that way I won't have to worry about which direction they're going. It's not going to look weird or anything. And almost finished the second car with the first car. Now we're working on the second car. After the first car, they're all going to be 1 block long, or 16 pixels. So make it the basic format for the 1 pixel or 1 block car, and I just keep going on and make each one a different design. This part where I kind of ramble on a bit. If you couldn't tell, I'm talking in third person right now. I'm not actually doing it this fast. I'm currently watching myself do it at 8 times speed. This section was originally 17 minutes long, and it's brought down to 2.5 minutes, and I went back on again. So okay, now we're making the crocodile or the alligator, and I'm starting off the first third of it since it's 3 blocks long. This first head, just make the head in the top third, and now I'm working on the rest of it. So this doesn't really matter, just make sure that the head is in the top third of it, or the farthest rightmost third. Now I'm making the frog. I actually am copying this pixel by pixel from the original one. The original one has more shading and stuff like that, but I just took the basic gist of it and copied it like that. I'm viewing the image while I'm drawing it. And the last one is the Lagoon. This one's not actually visible, so I just make it a red block. That's why it's not clicking. Now I'm going through and set up the masks for each one. For each of them, go into them, click Modify Mask, Full Image, and Rectangle. And then the alligator we're going to do a little differently. You have to size it so that only the first 2/3 of it are be selected, so that way the frog will be able to walk on the crocodile's head. Okay, so that's all for the sprites. I'm sorry if it went a little fast, but I just felt like any more than 2 minutes, or any more than 2.5 minutes would have been way too long to have it in the video and it would take too much time. Feel free to watch it over a few times if you didn't catch a few things. So now we're going to make a background, or really we're going to make a tile set. So edit background, transform, resize canvas, make it 16, no, yeah, we'll start off making 16 by 16, and then I'll make the first section purple, size 33, next section I'll make green, make sure to leave 1 pixel in there, and the last section will be 50, and this one's going to be black. So 3 squares, 1 black, 1 green, 1 purple, 1 pixel separating. And then we're going to select use tile set, make sure it's 16 by 16, no offset, horizontal separation is 1. So now it should surround each of the squares perfectly. Now we're getting to the objects. First and most importantly, we're going to create the frog, give it the frog sprite, and a sub event. We're going to go over the walking or the movement. So type down if keyboard check VK right. Actually, do a little different this time. VK pressed. So just keep moving on. It'll only move once every time you click it. And this one we're going to do x plus equals 16. I'm just going to speed up these other ones. It should make sense to you. I've used this little code in practically every single one of my tutorials. Alright, that's all for that. I'm going to put a little comment here, just saying, just so I can organize it, because I'm going to put more stuff in here later. Alright, now we're going to set up our room, and we're going to give it a little bit of a weird dimension. We're going to say 480 by 256. Now you'll notice that this is a lot wider than you'd expect the frog game to be, because the frog game is actually higher than it is wide. Well, I've taken that into account, and there's going to be a view somewhere around the center of the room that's going to represent what we're going to see. So we're going to set up that view right now. Make sure it's pushed up 128 with 224, and the height is just fine. Actually, this needs to be 224 and the height is 256. So we're going to make this 3 times the size of these ones. So 224 times 3 is what, 66 or 672. There we go. And then 256 times 3, 768. All right, there we go. And so there you have a nice little view in the middle of the center of the room. And now I'll explain the reason why we're doing this. So we're going to have logs and stuff crossing across the screen and just going out and this looping, right? Well, if the screen was actually this size and we programmed it to go to the beginning again once it went outside the screen, then it would come here and just respawn here and it'll repeat that. But if you look in the game, that's not what happens. It'll come out of the screen and it'll wait a while and then it'll come back over here. So the way I've decided to fix that problem is that it'll actually keep going until it gets over here and it's outside the screen for a little while, and then it'll come inside the screen again. It'll still stay outside this. Then it will move back to the beginning of the room. Then it'll stay outside the screen for a little while, and then it'll come in. And that'll be. This is just about the dimension that they have in the other normal frog game, if they did it that way, of course. But it works out pretty well this way. So now we're going to go into our tiles and add them to our room. Now let's try and get an idea of where the top bottom left corners of our view. Alright, I'm gonna put my finger there actually. Okay. That's that corner. Now let me find the other one, and there's the other one. Okay, so our first row in the game is blue and black. Next one's purple. Next 5 are going to be black. This is going to be the road. Next one's going to be purple. This is going to be the separator between the road and the river. And then next 5, you might have noticed that I didn't have a blue color in this because I figured we have background color anyway. So decided to make the background color blue, and then that's that. Now I'll just fill in the road right now. Okay, and then count 5 pixels to make up for the river. And the grassy part's going to start around here. So one thing to know for the grassy part is it's actually not going to be on this same grid. It's actually translated 8 pixels to horizontally. So the way we're going to make up for that is go like, make snap x8, and then it's going to start right here. That's just the way it is in the game. It's offset a little bit. Not 100% sure why, but we want to stay legit, and that's the way to do it. That's all for our tile set. Again, if you go to the views, you'll see that's what you'll be seeing when you're playing the game, this little box right here. So now let's create a log. So we're just going to call it obj water. Now this object will eventually work with every single one of our water objects, but for now I'm just going to make it look like a simple log so I can get the concept over to you guys. So we just we just set the log as the sprite, as you can see over here. And now what needs to be done is take care of the h speed, at least in the creation method. That's all I need to do. And it's set equal to 1. So moving right at a somewhat decent speed. It's sort of medium in the game. And now go to step event. Now we're going to code for it moving back to the left side of the room as soon as it goes off the right side, or vice versa. So if x exceeds the room width, we want it to go back to the left side of the room. In other words, x equals 0. And if it goes outside the room to the left, or in other words, if x goes below 0, then we want it to go back to the right side of the room, or where x equals the room width. This will work perfectly right there. Alright, and then we'll go into our frog. Okay, so now we're going to code how the frog reacts to water objects. Frog in water. So first off, we've got to figure out which flotation device we're going to cling to, or which one we're going to assume we're clinging to. So we're going to create a new variable that represents the one we're clinging to, called floaty, and we're going to set equal to one hefty function that I'm going to type down and then explain. Okay, so this will return whichever water object, obj water, collides within the rectangle these coordinates, and it says true not mean and true precision, which I'm not sure what these two mean, but this will represent a rectangle, and it's going to find the obj water object within this rectangle. These are the top left corner of the rectangle, this bottom right corner of the rectangle. And the reason why I'm doing +1, and 15 rather than the 16, which is sprite width, is because I want to make sure that it doesn't grab the wrong one, so I'm making it a little more precise than it would theoretically need to be. So now we're going to find out what we're going to do with the floaty. First off, one needs to be less than 128, which means we're in the river area. If it's not the river area, we don't want to rack the floaty at all. And if that happens, we want x equal another hefty bit of code that I'm going to type and explain later. Okay, so this is our x value right here, nothing special about it. We add this part in, it will have x aligned to the grid. What x mod 16 means is that we'll subtract 16 from x over and over again until we can't subtract 16 without going negative. And the number left from that is called the remainder, and if we subtract that from x, we'll get a number divisible by 16. So it'll be aligned to the grid. And then floaty.x is going to be, this is going to be the same thing for floaty. It's going to be a remainder of floaty whenever it's subtract 16 subtracted over and over again, and this is what's left over from there. If we add that to this number, x will be aligned to the flotation device correctly. And now we want to make sure that x is the same speed as the flotation device, so that way we won't be depending solely on this. And we're going to do that is h speed equals h speed of the floaty. Elsewise, if we're not in this river region like it says here, we want to make sure that h speed remains 0. Okay, now we're going to program the death of the frog, and several ways to die. And since there's several ways to die, we don't want to retype the death code over and over again, so we're going to create a script for the death code. So create script, we're going to call this scr die, and in the code we're going to say x equals x start and y equals y start, meaning that x will return to the x position where the object spawned, and the y will return to the y position that the object spawned. Now, this doesn't seem like a whole lot, but we're going to add to it later, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so now back into the frog. Now we're going to program all those deaths. First, if the frog goes outside the room, or the view in this case, so if x is less than view x view, or the x value of the view, or x is greater than view x view plus view w. So if frog goes outside outside the view to the left, it'll die, and if it goes outside the view to the right, it'll die. Alright, and then so we just type scr die, parentheses, very important. That's all of that. Now we want to program if it's in the river and it's not on a flotation device, we want to drown and die. So if y is less than 128, means in the river area, and it's not colliding with a flotation device, then we want to die. And that is all for that. So, alright, so let's just add some of those logs to the room, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so just add them to the room. As you can see, they're moving along. They don't stop at any point, which means that they're looping across the room just like we programmed them to. And here are the frog, and my frog glides them. Moves along with them just fine. I can move on top of them, move back, and my HP is 0 again. So that's how that works. Now I'm going to teach you how we can use this object to make multiple water objects. This object we'll use for all the water objects, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So first off, I'm going to say no sprite since it's going to be used for things other than that log. And we're going to take away this code right here and delete it. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that we should make the frog depth -1, so that way it will show up above the logs or whatever the water thing is no matter what. And otherwise it might go under at some points, and that's bad. Let's go into our room, and as you can see our logs turn to blue circles because we took away the sprite. If we hold and control and right click on it and go to creation code, we're going to retype our code. So our code was hspeed equals 1, but now we need to add on the sprite and took away the sprite. So we're going to say sprite index equals spr log 3. And this will set up the log like we want it to. And let's copy that, and we'll paste it into the other logs. Since this creation code right here will only apply to that log right there, and then right here it'll only apply to that one, and so on and so on. So that way we'll be able to make each one unique to our liking. And then we'll create some more up here. I don't know how nice this is going to look. I'm just putting them in there a little randomly. But creation code, paste it again. We're going to make the HP for this one negative, so it'll be going the opposite direction. And instead of log 3, we're going to say log 2, so it's going to be a smaller type of log. Copy this, and we're going to paste it into our other ones. Now test it. Okay, there we go. As you can see, it looks different, so that's one thing. And its HP is different. So you can see how you made two different logs with one objects. And that way you can avoid making a lot of logs. Because if you made individual objects for each type of log or car or whatever, then you could easily end up with 50 if you made multiple levels. And if you made a ton of levels, you can end up in the hundreds easily. So just this will save you a lot of effort and space. Now that works fine just like I did earlier, and this works fine. And I just went into the water like that, so that's also good tested. If we go outside this way, we die as well. And this way we die, so that's nice. We got that working. So that's basically all for our logs. Now there's one other water object that we're going to make, turtles, and they're going to be programmed a little bit differently. So I'm going to create obj turtle, make its parent water because you want the player to be standing just like normally. Only now we want it to cycle between the sub images because remember we have two sub images for this one. So in the creation event, first off we're going to have image speed equals 0. We don't want to constantly change between them. Also in the creation event, we're going to say alarm 0 equals 30. So every second we're going to have it switch image index, and then alarm 0, you'll see we're going to say image index this equals 1, and alarm 0 equals 30 again. Alright, now you program the character a little differently to react to this. We're going to have another death sequence. If place meeting, so if we're on the turtle and instance, okay, so if we're on the turtle and the closest turtle to us, if the image index of that turtle is equal to 1, we want to die. We want the thing to die. Instance nearest will give us the closest obj turtle. This function right here will give us the closest obj turtle object to us, which will, in all cases, be the one that we're on. You could use collision rectangle for right up here as well, but in this case not necessary. Down here it is, but here it isn't. Alright, so let's add our turtle. Okay, I'm just going to add one turtle object right there. And we're going to set up the creation code just like we did with the water object. Say hspeed equals 0.5 because turtles are slow, and sprite index equals spr turtle 3. Okay, and I'll copy this. And now I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to create the other turtles as water objects. Now the reason I'm going to create water objects but just with the turtle image, because most of the turtles in the game don't bob up and down and switch their image index. Only one in every row does, or maybe two. So we have this one right here that's going to be turtle, and the rest are all object waters that look like turtles. So creation code, we want it to look the same. Only now we got to add on that we want image speed equals 0 because that's not default in our water objects. So I copied this and set it up that way for most of the turtles. For most of the ones in this row, sorry. Now, test it out. Our turtles look like turtles, which is good. And as you can see, there's one that's switching through constantly, like it should. And we can step on the turtles just like anything else. And if we're careful, we can step on the one that's, oh darn, I'm not careful. Let me see if I can step on the one that's keeps splashing, or if I drown if I step on it while it's green. Here we go. I just died because I stepped on it. Let's see if I can step on it. See that? I stepped on it for a little bit and then I died, which is good. That's what you want. Alright, so now that's basically all for the water objects. Now I'm going to create our OBJ car. The only thing for the car is we want the same looping code that we use for the water, so we're just going to copy that over. There we go. Now in the frog we're going to code what we want to happen when we hit the car, which is die. So if place eating XY car. And that's all to it. Now let's add the cars. Just add a few just randomly. I hope this won't be too hard to get through. Okay, and for the creation code, first off, put in something for H speed equals -1. And for the sprite index, just simply use one of your car sprites. That's all there is to it. And I'm just going to put codes in for each car, and then I'm going to add another 2 layers for the swamp or the river, and then we'll move on to test out and move on to the lagoons. Alright, so see you guys there. Okay, so here we go. The game's working fine. If I hit a car, I die. Doesn't matter which car, I die. And then if I can still walk on these things just fine, and I die if I go into the water. And then I can walk on these things. I can walk on that one. Please note that on the alligators, I can step on the head and then I'll still die. I'm not talented enough at this game to test it out right now, but just know that if you step on the head, I'll still die because we set up mask differently in the beginning. Alright, now last but not least, we're going to set up the lagoons. So if we get to all the way to one of the lagoons, we want it to bring us to the next level. If we got all 5 of them, we want to restart otherwise. Alright, so let's take that taken care of. We're going to create 2 objects. First one, OBJ marker. It's going to be the same sprite as the frog, which is going to be the victory symbol whenever we get to the lagoon. And then we're going to create OBJ lagoon as well. Lagoon, alright. And that's going to have the red marker. The way it's going to work is, when our frog collides with the lagoon, we're going to create an OBJ marker. And the creation of an OBJ marker, first thing it's going to do is destroy the lagoon. So with this, we'll grab the nearest lagoon and it will destroy it. Or have it destroy itself would be more correct. Alright. And then the lagoon's not going to have any code whatsoever. One thing I forgot to mention about the lagoon is that we want to make it a child of OBJ water. That way the frog won't die when we collide with it. And in the frog, we're going to add something over here for when we collide with the lagoon. If place meeting, if we collide with the lagoon, then we want to create the marker, and we want to, we're basically going through death escape right now, but the only difference is we're not going to lose lives. And we haven't gotten to that yet, but when we do, we don't need death escape. So that's why I'm just basically doing death escape right now. Even though, yeah, that's why I'm doing the death script right now, but death script will be different soon. And then we'll create a new variable called finish. And finish will represent how many lagoons found or habit moved into, I guess. And so when we collide with the one, then we're gonna add one to finish. When finish equals 5, we move on to the next room. We'll just put that right here as well. If finish equals 5, room go to next. Alright. And then we just gotta create the variable and the creation event. Gotta start off at 0. And then what else? So we'll just add the lagoons to our game, like so, and then we'll test it out. Alright, finally got up here again, and that time it worked. Alright, good. Good. And then if we get to all 5 of them, this is gonna take a while. Okay. You know what? Just take my word for it. If we get to all 5 of them, it'll go to the next room, and I'm just gonna duplicate the room so that you can test out yourself. Alright. I feel pretty confident in that. I'm not gonna test it out myself. It'll take a lot of time. So now, what's next? Alright, score on lives. We're going to take care of that next. So we're going over to your frog creation event. We're going to add 3 new variables. Don't make that plural. Okay, layer is going to represent how much you've progressed through the level. In the game, every time you move up one layer, or move up one road, one layer of water obstacles or whatever, your score increases by 10. So we're gonna create a little code to take care of that. It's gonna be in the up function. So we're going to just space it out a little bit so I can be more clear what I'm doing. Okay, so and now this is gonna be sort of a large piece of code. So I'm just gonna type it out and explain it later. Okay, so what this will do is, it'll check whether we've reached our top layer by going through this code, or whether we exceed our top layer, I should say, and then it'll increase top layer by 1 and it'll increase the score by 10. Okay, every time we class Lagoon, we want our score to increase by 100 or 500, sorry, and we want layer to reset to 1. One more thing we're going to add before we test it out is we're going to go to sub event and put down if lives is less than 0, game restart. So that way, once we run out of lives, game restarts. And in our death script, we want nothing to happen to our score. We want lives to be decreased by 1, and we want layer to be reset to 1 as well. Alright, now if we go into our frog and the draw event, we're going to draw all our lives and all that cool stuff. So first off, you got to draw the frog, because whenever you go in the draw event, it negates everything you currently have. So you got to start from scratch, and then draw sprite. And first on sprite is whatever our sprite index is. Index, whatever image index is, next XY, and that's all there's drawing the sprite. We need to draw text. First, view, X view, make it go in the top of the view, then it's 0 because that's what Y I want at, and the text is going to be lives. Then we'll copy this little code here, and we'll add 50 right there, and we'll set this equal to score. Why did I put down C here? I don't know. Now we're going to test it one final time. So here we have our lives, here we have our score, we have our frog. If we move up 1, I can see it increasing, there you go, moved up by several, and move by 10 each time up to 70. And then it will stay true for this. And if we make all it white one of the lagoons. I'm so bad at this game. Developers aren't good at games, just know that. Okay, here we go. There. See? It went from... I don't remember. It was right. It was right. I'm so tired. Okay, that's all for Frog Guard. I hope you guys enjoyed. I am so tired. I still need to record the history. This part of the video is probably going to end up being like an hour long. I don't know. I hope I can cut it down to size somewhat. Anyway, Frogger's off the list. I hope you guys learned something from it. I hope you understood everything I said. Have a nice Christmas break. See you guys.